Hi, everybody. I'm Sheri Pearl, and I am sitting here with two of the most extraordinary healers and wonderful women that I have ever met. And we're here to talk about how these two helped me so very much when I was in great need of their services. Now, I am not going to go into any detail right now about what made me need their services because I will take up all the time and I only have a certain amount of time for them to talk. But I will let you know that as a very new EVP researcher, I had a very quick success in being able to use an electronic sound source to contact spirit and hear 100% of the conversation. What I didn't know was the importance of protection and the light and how to create a safe pathway to this line. I only learned in retrospect that it wasn't a person-to-person call, but the party line. And that there is, even documented in the field of EVP, imposters who will get on your line, who will impersonate those who you trust. And Miss Naivete over here did trust a group of fairly nasty lower entities who began to tell me things that began to upset and confuse me. And by the time I came to see Linda, who was an old friend of my brother Richard's, I was really in bad shape emotionally and even physically. I was beginning to struggle. And my brother saw the kind of shape I was in and he said, "You must go to Santa Fe and spend some time with Linda. She knows a great deal about psychic attack," which was something I really didn't know about. And it's changed my life to have these two women in my life. If I can, I'll come out once a year for the rest of my life. But what I'd like to do is, this is Linda Burnham and this is Debra Doyle. And I'd first like to ask Linda the first question, which is, after Richard contacted you, when did you first, when did you pick up on what was going on with me? And how did you pick up on that?
Well, a call came in from Richard, and I have known Richard most of my life. He's a dear, 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 dear friend. And I trust him. So when he said there was a problem that his sister was having, I realized there was probably truth to that assessment. I was working in Europe at the time. I was not home. I was at the end of a 3-week trip. I was a little ragged on the edges myself. But what you do when you get a sense that something is wrong with someone, or someone tells you something's wrong, you have to really check it out for yourself. You have to go inward and look. So I took a look at Sheri from a distance and literally looked at her field, looked at her whole essential energy system. Now I'm more of a clairsentient person. I have a gestalt of senses that I work with. So there's some clairvoyance, there's some clairaudience, a lot of clairsentience, and ultimately I just know something from the gestalt of all the senses. So I can't tell you how that is or how I know. It's just things come to a place where I know. And so I took a look at Sheri and went, oh, Richard's right. Sheri is in really serious shape right here. And I called him back and said, I'll be coming home in a few days. Let's go ahead and do it. And Richard arranged for Sheri to come to Santa Fe. And so in the world of there is no distance, there is no time, there is no space in the world or the dimension of spiritual intuition. You can see, you can do, you can feel, anything that needs to happen can happen, because those constraints of the physical reality don't exist. And so it was easy to take a look at Sheri, easy to see there was a problem. But also, and I'm sure Debra will say this as well, whenever we get a potential person we're going to help or a potential client, the most important thing is to ask, is this something that I can do? Do I have permission on a higher level? Do I have permission to work with this person? And if you don't get a yes, you don't work with them. That's bottom line basics. You have to have permission, which means there has to be a higher spiritual contract for you and that person to engage at the level that has to happen to help heal what I call impingement. And I use that word because the word exorcism is a really weird word. It's been overused in the movies and everywhere else, and I don't like to use it. And exorcism, the same thing. It's like, woo, woo, people get nervous and afraid. There's nothing at all to be afraid of when you are helping relieve someone of extra baggage, even if that extra baggage happens to be an entity, and also if it happens to be just a thought form. So you ask, you get permission, you get a contract, and if all those things are in line, then you say yes. So bottom line, that's where it started for me. So now let's find out from Debra, because it's a process probably pretty similar.
Well, how did you know that you wanted to bring me to Debra? I mean,
When I took a look at you, it was a very complicated situation. And your investment in the situation was extremely high. You had found something that works for you beautifully. You have special skills in this realm. You were able to help bereaved parents. You were able to help lost and bereaved children. And all of those things really wrung your heart. And you wanted to be able to do it. And the only problem is you didn't have the grounding in the light, the grounding in healing, the grounding in the, let's say, the principles of moving in those worlds. And mostly it's the grounding in the light. So that you were really wide open when all of this happened. And your investment of, oh, I have to do this, I want to do this, plus it gave you a wonderful identity at a time when you really needed that in your life. And so it was mostly the intensity of that investment that you had that had to be dealt with first, so that you could loosen enough to take in training about the light, use it, understand it, and be free of the propensity of taking on the negative energy for any reason whatsoever, no matter what it is. And I know Debra. I work with her husband a great deal, who's divine as well, and I've had sessions with Debra. I think she's a brilliant practitioner. And as I thought about the totality of the physical experience that I wanted you to have, to release on deep dimensional levels and do it in a very safe place, it was Debra. And I prayed about it, and it was Debra that I heard in my head. That's the guidance I got. It was like, Debra, okay, that's Debra. You move on what guidance you get. And that's Debra.
Thank you.
so Debra, when I got here to you, I was in pretty bad shape, and I got up on this wonderful table of yours, and you proceeded to tell me that you did, in fact, see an entity, I guess, in my astral body. And my first question is, do you see this as a mental mediumship? I mean, you see it in your mind's eye?
Yes, okay, I do. So when Sheri came after Linda had worked on her, I had been told she was going to come in, and I did a meditation for her. I do meditations for everybody who comes into the office. And when I was looking at her, there just seemed like there was a darkness hanging around her body, and it was thick and it was dense, and it wasn't letting me in. So usually when you look at a person, they're pretty brilliant, their light is bright, they're moving through life, and they're functioning just like you would think they should. And when Sheri came in, she just felt depleted to me, very depleted. So I don't know. Do you want me to tell you about the treatment?
Yeah, well, the thing is, so you saw something that you actually saw a being.
Yes.
And you said that you would remove it if I wanted, of course, which I did very badly. And my eyes were closed, but people will say, well, what did she do?
Okay.
How did she do that? So, what did you do, and how did you learn to do this extraordinary thing?
Okay, so what I did with Sheri was I start out with a protocol where I'm doing basically very intuitive work. It's using stones on chakras, using tuning forks on meridian pathways. And when I'm working, I ask for her guides to guide me. It's nothing to do with me. I'm just a vehicle. And so what happened is when I was working on Sheri, I saw this dark being. And as we start clearing, because I clear out the chakras as I'm doing this, and this being came out, and it looked to me like a dragon. But it was not a dragon. Didn't have wings or anything like that. So maybe a big lizard or something. And when it finally got to the point where I asked Sheri, do you want this to stay or to be removed? And she said she wanted it removed. And it starts snarling. And in showing that it's not happy that I discovered it, because you don't always see these things. You kind of have to get to the level, like I said, through clearings and being open to receiving. And Sheri was open to receiving, so in that way it was easier to go in and find it, because if somebody's resistant, it's not going to happen. So we cleared it, and I used bells. They hate bells. I use Palo Santo. They hate smoke. So this is something I learned from like 30 years ago. How did I get into this? My grandmother is a psychic. My great-grandmother had visions. And I was shown when I was 30 that I had vision. And so I've been doing this work for quite a long time, just by being shown things and trusting in the spirit. As far as questioning, if I question anything, I will perhaps pull at the pendulum and ask, is this my ego or is this actually taking place? And after I worked with Sheri and we cleared it, she looked very light and felt happy. And they gave her advice of what it is that she could do to maintain this energy.
Well, you definitely did. One of the things you told me was to raise my vibration. Music would be very powerful for me. And so I have added to my light work, which Linda was very stern about me doing. I play music while I do it, and I dance while I do it, and I bring in both visualization and calling in the 4 archangels with dance and music, so that I prepare myself to open the line in a safe way.
Yes.
So did you study with shamans? I mean, did you read, or did you just develop this through your own intuition?
Okay, I didn't study with anybody. What happened is I was a Jin Shindo therapist, and that's doing body-mind therapy with acupressure. And with Jin Shindo, you're supposed to kind of talk to the people, dialogue with them, and get information and help them on their journey. And when I was doing this, I started noticing that I had vision and I saw things. And so when I started seeing these things, I started trusting more and more in the vision. Just trying to, actually talking about this is it's interesting because I've never explained it.
You never really explained it.
I never really explained it. It's just that you go in, you see it, you trust it. It's if you're in meditation and you ask God, source, creator, great mystery, to guide you and show you, and you step out of the way and you ask to be shown what this person needs for their growth. Like Linda was saying, you have to get permission. You can't just go jump into it if they're not ready. And then you're shown this stuff, and you're shown what the person needs, and you'll be given information that you would not know about that person, so that they know that you're on track with them, and this is not something that you're just pulling out of the air. And then when the energy does come through, it is like you feel like you're being inhabited by Creator, by the
Divine
angels,
energy,
the divine energy, and you just let it come through. And so, be it cleaning, like I said, I've said that before.
Well, it's absolutely amazing, because the difference was I felt infinitely better. Yes. I felt infinitely better. There were no words to explain how much better I felt. And to me, it was an absolute miracle. And then, Linda, you were very strict in saying, you do not open that line. You take some time away from that, and you learn to build your light and to be discerning. Absolutely. To not, once now that I've understood about the importance of discernment, I will know almost instantly if I'm talking to anyone that's in any way unsavory, because I know what a good, kind soul would say. And so, it takes discernment, but with the light work, there's an enormous amount of protection.
As you build and raise your own vibratory field, as you move to higher and higher states of light and love, your whole cellular structure changes. And so you draw to yourself different experiences, different friendships, different people, different situations. And on the inner planes, on the inner dimensions, more and more light-filled beings. And you get so light that dark-filled beings just aren't they just can't come anywhere near you.
Right.
You know, and it's an
That's
important
true.
thing to realize that yes, there are lower astral entities. They do exist. Not everyone who passes over goes over with good heart to move on into the light. They really are more attached to what the earth provided them, and they don't really want to leave that. That's one level of
Absolutely.
impingement that can happen. And there are people who do brilliant work just helping people cross over, so they can actually cross over into the light and do it with a level of hopefulness and forward momentum. There are souls that get locked on the earth plane, and you can say it can be benign. You know, grandma passes and she doesn't want her 3-year-old grandson to not have her and know her, and she wants to protect him, so she attaches to the 3-year-old grandson, and the young kid at 19 is having back problems. You know, lower backs is a very common area where attachments happen, and you call it benign because the grandmother's not trying to hurt, but rather to protect and love the child. But the fact that the grandmother didn't die and go into the light on her own path and purpose is the problem. It's not that she had a contract from higher spirits say, okay, you want to be a guardian and a teacher for this young soul? Okay. That's not necessarily what happened in the little incident that I just made up on that. And so, you know, it's always important not to be afraid.
Right.
There is nothing to be afraid of if someone is not embodied at all, regardless of the level of their consciousness. You work with the light, you work with your own faith in yourself, you trust the guidance you get. Ultimately, you build that muscle strongly throughout your daily life of trusting that inner momentum of thought and grace and action. And it gets stronger and stronger. And then, as Debra said, you just listen and you do it. For me, you listen and you do it.
And you know, everybody's different.
Yeah,
There's no two people alike.
None
No.
who do their work or who are needing support at
each
all.
person. Right.
Everyone is different. And for me, when I prayed about, can I remove the entity, because it was an entity and a group of entities actually that was working with Sheri on the downside, put it that way. And I was told you can clear off a bunch of them. So I did that morning before we came over and set them on their way in the light. But they said that the contract to remove the big dude was yours.
Yeah.
Whatever the contract that Sheri and Debra had at that moment, it was for them to be in that thing, not for Sheri and I to be in that thing. And I just had to say, okay, fine, I'll get her to Debra.
Yeah, which worked out perfectly.
Perfectly.
Because she cleared all the stuff that would have actually kept this guy buried or this whatever it was.
So it was really wonderful working in tandem and never talking to each other necessarily about what we were doing, but understanding that we both are ultimately focused on the light, focused on God, and we listen and we act according to that deep inner prompting that we've developed over our lives, actually.
And I want to say that I think we're very fortunate to have light workers of this nature, because it's good to know that if you do get confused or lost, there are those who can help guide you back to the light, because there's a lot of people on this side of the veil of vibrational differences we would not want to know. And there are those on the other side as well. And so we have to protect ourselves. We wouldn't just go out into a big city in a foreign country in the middle of the night and just walk down a dark alley. We would protect ourselves with common sense. But I was not using common sense. And I have learned that whether you're in physical reality or you're delving into spirit realms, you must protect yourself with light. You must, my friend Vicky calls it the 3 P's: prayer, permission, and protection.
Oh, yes.
And I think that is very important. So thank you guys.
Well, I want to say
very
2
much.
other things, though,
Please.
based on what you said. Protection is important, but it's not the protection of you put up walls to prevent yourself from being hurt.
Yes.
That level of protection is not what either Debra or I are talking about.
It does not work.
What we're talking about, protection, is you build your light. You center yourself in your light. You draw light beings around you. You interact with light essences in every aspect of your life that you can. And there are many tools that you can use to augment that and make it strong, which is what Sheri does now. And so it's not like, oh, I'm afraid, protect me.
Right.
No way. It's, I am light. Period.
Yeah.
And build
listening to your inner wisdom. That is so important. You have to listen to your inner wisdom.
And trust it till that muscle gets so
Yes.
strong that you never question it. You just act. And the other thing I wanted to share is that in the realm of angelic support for all of us, there is a group of angels called angels of exorcism. And they literally help in any exorcism that's happening anywhere at any time, or any impingement that's happening. And you can call on angels of exorcism all the time. If I'm doing an exorcism, as I did earlier in the morning, definitely angels of exorcism are right there working with me, guiding me if they need to, helping with the process. Because what those angels will do will be loosen the bond, right? So it can be released. But they also will take those being, if it is an impingement by a being, right, who was in a body and is no longer, they'll take that soul. They'll take that soul to the healing temples. They will work with that soul, so that soul will not have to, get involved with being possessing to get their hit.
Satisfactions, yeah.
Absolutely. And the angels help a tremendous amount. And they're angels, if ever you're in a dark area, such as, heavy duty bars, a lot of extraneous spirits there. You can look at those darker areas and we look at them and go, I don't think I want to go in there. And that's one of the reasons you don't, because there's a lot of difficult energy. And those are the places where if you want to, you just call angels of exorcism, have them, direct them, say, do whatever you can do, whatever can be free, whatever can be cleared, please do it. But if you are ever working in a situation where you feel something's wrong, call them. They will be there immediately. They will help you. They will support you. They'll give you wisdom, and they'll direct you to anybody who can help you.
And isn't it true that they really won't intervene if you don't call them?
Yes.
Angels need to be asked.
Free will.
That's part of our free will.
It's our
Exactly.
free will.
So ask.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate.
Especially when you're going through a time when you're very fearful or angry or grieving or anything. It opens up channels, and those are the channels where some of these disembodied souls enter. So you just want to make sure that if you're going through a time like that, bring that light back up. And when I say the light, it's from within. It's like a battery. Or if you're feeling low and stuff, breathe, take some nice deep breaths, and bring in the trust and the faith.
Yeah.
And you will be taken care of. You've been taken care of this far.
Absolutely.
And so you'll be always watched over.
Thank you both so much. I'm so proud of this
Sheri.
video.
We love this
And
one.
we'll figure out how to get it played and on YouTube. And I appreciate this
good.
I appreciate you guys so
We
much.
love you, sweetie.
Love you both.
Debra, come on over here.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye, everybody.